Welcome back to Pokemon episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 444, What I Did for Love. The episode begins with Ash and the gang having arrived in Gardenia Town, the location that Luna's butler talked about, where a contest would be held. And sure enough, Ash and the gang saw that a contest was going to get underway soon, so they went outside the contest hall, where all the other coordinators were already training with their Pokemon. There was a coordinator with a Bulbasaur, a Caterpie, an Arbok, a Vulpix, a Ninetales, an Oddish, a Venonat, Venomoth, a Persian, Growlithe, Bellsprout, Marowak, Coughing, Furret, Mareep, Meryl, Azumarill, Hoppip, Mudkip, Poochyena, Beautyfly, Lotad, Lombre, Talo, Curlia, Loudred, Azrael, Sableye, Mawile, Manectric, Spinda, Snorunt, and Grumpig. Seeing all these coordinators and their mons, May got very excited to train as well, and decided that if Eevee wanted to, then she would use it in the contest. Very excited to participate as she sent out her Eevee, which did a flip as it came out of its Pokeball, landing perfectly on its feet, and exclaiming happiness to see May. May asked Eevee if it was alright with being in the contest, and Eevee smiled and nodded happily, which made May happy as a result. Brock, Max, and Ash, and Pikachu were watching May and her Eevee while Brock was feeding Bonsly some milk, and Brock also complimented how well taken care of Eevee looked. Seeing Bonsly drinking milk, Ash and Max decided to get some soft drinks for themselves, and Max wished May luck, waving to her and Eevee. May thanked Max as Eevee ran around her legs as per her command, listening to everything she said. Brock stated that Eevee sure did know how to listen, and May admitted this, saying that with Eevee by her side, she would for sure win the contest, although she still decided that she was going to do a little bit of training with it. Meanwhile, a little after this, a girl named Molly and her Eradicate were making their way through the large crowd of coordinators looking for the place to register, or the registration lady, or just someone who could point her to registration. Although she was having severe difficulty finding the registration spot because there were so many goddamn people. Just as Molly and her Eradicate finally arrived in an area that wasn't filled with people though, Ash and the gang started walking towards her with May shouting Eevee's name, because Eevee had run away from May during the excitement of training. So Ash and the gang were essentially looking for Eevee because it got lost. And just then, Eevee appeared from beneath Molly and her Eradicate, and sent Molly and her Eradicate flying in surprise, as Eevee then jumped into May's arms. Happy to see her because it thought that they were just playing. As Molly got up, May felt bad for the situation and apologized to her, and asked if she was okay, and thankfully she was. As May scolded Eevee for running off, demanding that it not run off again, Molly then asked May if she was competing in the contest, and May confirmed this, so Molly admitted that she would be participating in the contest too. It would be her first one, and she was looking for the contest hall to go register at, but she didn't know where it was. So Brock pointed to the contest hall that was to the left of them, and confirmed that that was the place she was looking for. Molly then thanks them, and runs off towards the contest hall. May immediately forgave Eevee, and stated how excited she was that it would be Eevee's first contest too, just like Molly's, although she then asked Eevee what it did when it ran off, and where it went, so Eevee decided to show her, digging underground, before coming back up and knocking Ash down in the process. Ash was shocked by this, while Max was amazed, realizing what Eevee had just done. It had now learned the move Dig somehow, just completely independently. May was amazed by this, and held up Eevee, almost hugging it, as she complimented it endlessly, saying how amazing it was that it learned a move just before the contest, while Ash simply laid there, glad that Eevee had learned a new move, but tired as fuck after the fall. Just then, a woman comes up to Brock, pushing May and Max aside, right as Ash gets back up. And the woman immediately starts complimenting Brock's Bonsly, and she picked it up and called it cute. Brock, finding the woman immensely attractive, was delusional and thought that maybe the woman was calling him cute, so he blushed and started to flirt, although the girl clarified that she was referring to Bonsly, and continued to hold it up in amazement, leading Brock to fall down in despair, sad that he was snubbed by the woman once again. He needed to sit down, so he did, and the woman, along with the rest of the gang, joined him at a table with an umbrella over top. The woman then introduced herself as Yuma, a Pokemon breeder, leading Brock to explain that he was a Pokemon breeder too. As he took Bonsly back from Yuma and started to feed it some milk, also drinking a drink himself, Yuma stated that she could tell Brock was a breeder, since she knew he was by the way he raised his Pokemon and the food he fed them, referring to how cute Bonsly was just naturally because of the way Brock was taking care of it and the milk that Brock was feeding it. Yuma also adds that she knew the difference between a Pokemon raised by a coordinator and a Pokemon raised by a breeder. A breeder cared more for the health of their Pokemon, while the coordinator cared more for the appearance of the Pokemon. Brock wanted to hear what Yuma thought of his Marshtomp and Fortress as well, so he sent them out. Much to Ash, May, and Max's, and Pikachu's surprise, Yuma confirmed that Marshtomp and Fortress were both in great shape, especially Marshtomp, leading Brock to state that one of the reasons why his Marshtomp was doing so good was because of his secret recipe Pokeblock that he had actually been making in secret, which shocked me that Brock had actually been brewing a Pokeblock without even using a goddamn blender machine. Brock pulled out his special Pokeblock and gave it to Marshtomp, and Marshtomp really liked it, and to further prove his point that his Pokeblocks were good, he asked Yuma to taste test one, and she did, complimenting Brock's cooking ability, admitting that she could tell that Marshtomp of all Pokemon would really like the Pokeblock. She says that since Brock was so good at making Pokeblocks, then maybe she was mistaken, and not only was Brock a breeder, but he should have also been a coordinator as well, and wondered if maybe Brock was entering this upcoming contest, shocking everyone, including Brock, because, they never even thought of Brock even entering a contest at all. Yuma, though, stated that although it was rare, there were definitely some breeders who could be coordinators as well, and revealed that she used to be one, and was surprised that Brock wasn't one as well, saying that breeding techniques could really help out the coordinators, saying that her breeding techniques helped her win the Grand Festival. Yeah, that's right, she was a Grand Festival winner. Not only that, but Yuma also revealed that since becoming a top coordinator, she decided to pass her techniques on to other coordinators, mainly beginners, essentially taking them on as students. May eagerly asked Yuma to teach her some of her techniques, but Yuma denied, saying that May was already good enough. Having seen some of her performances on TV, she didn't deserve her help, because she only helped beginners. As for Brock, he had actually started to debate if he should enter the contest or not, after hearing that breeding and coordinating could go hand in hand, and both skills could be useful for each other. Especially since Brock knew this, at least with coordinators helping out breeders, since, he made a Pokéblock for Marshtomp. Brock finally made the choice to enter the Gardenia contest after all, deciding that he wanted to do anything that would make Miss Yuma happy, and he knew that him entering the contest would make her happy. So, Brock ran inside the contest hall to grab a contest pass, and a few seconds later, he came out with one, declaring that with this contest pass, he would enter the Gardenia contest and win the goddamn ribbon, for Yuma's sake. And went on and on in a detailed speech about his declaration of victory, with Max and May amazed that Brock actually got a contest pass so quickly, with Ash wondering that maybe he fucking got a Hoenn contest pass instead of a Kanto one, but he looked and saw that it was a Kanto one, and was shocked as fuck that Brock was actually entering the contest. Max and May agreed, as Ash commented that May had just found herself a new rival in Brock. Meanwhile, as for Team Rocket, Jessie was preparing for their latest scam, as she placed down a box full of ribbons on the ground just outside the contest hall. And she had a little fantasy, as Mime Jr. joined in on her fantasy too, dancing around with her, as she claimed that she would be a top coordinator no matter what after doing this scam, explaining that she couldn't be a coordinator, she couldn't be a top coordinator right now, since she didn't have a costume, and she believed that she would need a costume in order to be one. Wobbuffet then forcibly popped out of his Pokeball and annoyed Jessie, as James questioned what the fuck Jessie was going to do to become a top coordinator if she didn't have a costume then. In response, Jessie revealed her plan, as she pointed down to the box of ribbons on the ground and ordered Meowth and James to help her sell these fake ribbons that she had made. Fake ones, fake contest ribbons, as well as other merchandise apparently, to make money in order to get Jessie some new costumes, since the reason why she didn't have a costume now is because she sold off her Jessabella costume to cover the cost of all the destroyed mechs that they had to pay for. James hesitantly agreed, but he went to go examine the fake ribbons to see if they were actually sellable, and much to his dismay, as he started to freak out and scream, he noticed that Jessie was utilizing his bottle caps to make the fake ribbons. He was so upset that he literally started crying while he screamed in anger. He was feeling sadness and anger at the same goddamn time. Annoying Meowth, while Jessie simply claimed that she didn't give a single fuck what James felt, because if she was to become a top coordinator, she needed a costume, so she would sacrifice anything, including James' bottle caps, to get this costume. We then see inside the contest hall, finally, and we also see Lillian making her usual pre-contest speech in order to get the massive crowd that had gathered in the stands fired up and ready for the contest. Her hype speech worked because the audience shouted and cheered in anticipation of the contest, and they cheered even more when Lillian showed off the Gardenia ribbon, a blue one, that would be given to the winner of the contest, as May and Brock watched on from the waiting room on the TV screen. Brock then admitted to May that he felt extremely nervous for the upcoming contest, and May admitted that she felt the same way, although Brock was able to calm himself down a little bit by watching Lillian and her beauty, and as he got a clearer mind, he was able to get rid of most of his nervousness and become excited for his first contest, including, hopefully, the battle rounds. As Brock and May continued to watch Lillian's speech, back inside the contest hall, Lillian introduced the three judges for the contest, the usual, Mr. Contesta, Mr. Sakizo, and the local Nurse Joy. All three of the judges then said their own introductions and said some stuff about themselves, as Lillian introduced herself too, and officially started the contest, specifically the appeals round, as the crowd cheered. And Lillian calling out the first coordinator, Molly, and her Eradicate as well, who Molly immediately sent out when she stepped on stage. The performance then started with Molly throwing a log into the air, while Max, Ash, Yuma, and Pikachu, with some cheering fans, watched from the audience. Eradicate then jumped as soon as the log was thrown into the air, and ripped through the log with his sharp teeth, using a Hyper Fang, until there was nothing but splinters left on the log. And then Eradicate showed off its shining fangs, impressing the judges, and making the crowd cheer, and Brock and May complimented the performance from the waiting room, with Brock admitting that Molly's performance was pretty good, and although May agreed, she scolded him, saying that he should try his best to only compliment his rivals in his head, reminding him that Molly was technically his rival, since she was gunning to win the contest too. Next, Lillian called upon May to enter the stage, and she did, sending out her Squirtle, since she was using Squirtle as her appeal round Pokemon and saving her Eevee for the battle rounds. Max and Ash and Yuma shouted support to May, as well as Pikachu, who danced around with his cheering flags, while May started off her performance by telling Squirtle to use Rapid Spin. So Squirtle did just that, withdrawing itself into its shell and starting to spin. May then ordered Squirtle to start spinning faster and faster and faster and faster, and Squirtle did this, bringing up a whole bunch of dust in the process. Next, May told Squirtle to follow up with a bubble. Even though Yuma, Ash, Max, and Lillian and the judges were already impressed by the rapid spinning, but this bubble was even more impressive as it created a tall pyramid of sparkling bubbles. This performance was so good so far that Lillian started to wonder if this bubble pyramid would be May's finishing act, but much to Lillian's delight and surprise, May told Squirtle to finish off with an ice beam actually, which froze all the bubbles and created a large ice pyramid, which Squirtle jumped on top of and posed happily on. All the judges and Lillian were left amazed as to the beauty of the ice sculpture that Squirtle had created and gave May and Squirtle immense praise. And Lillian even cheered May on. As Brock watched May's performance from the waiting room, wondering how he could do better than May. We then see performances from several other coordinators, including one that involved an Arbok and one that involved a Sableye. After some time, Lillian called Brock out into the stage, though, and the crowd and Pikachu and Ash, Yuma, and Max all cheered, while Max wished Brock good luck. As soon as Brock came out on stage, he looked pretty nervous, especially when Lillian clarified that Brock was the last appeals contestant. As May watched from the waiting room, Brock started off his performance by sending out his appeal Pokemon, Bonsly, and having it start with fake tears. The crowd was surprised by Brock's choice of move, not seeing how this would earn him any points whatsoever, but much to their surprise, and Brock's delight, all the judges praised Brock, really liking Bonsly's climb for some reason, especially Nurse Joy, which pleased Brock so much that he deviated from his performance in order to go over to Nurse Joy and thank her for the compliment, grabbing her hands as he declares his love to her. However, Lillian stopped Brock's flirting by doing exactly what Max would do, pulling him away by the ear, and demanding that he finish off his appeal round if he had anything left to do at all. Otherwise, he would be disqualified. And Brock clarified that he did have something to do still, as he smiled at the camera, and he literally developed fire in his eyes, picking up a white baseball out of his pocket that he had brought with him. Ash and Max were embarrassed by Brock's flirting, while Yuma, on the other hand, was just excited to see what Brock would come up with the baseball. Brock then looked into Bonsly's eyes, who also had developed fire in them, and as Brock gripped the white baseball tight, he stared at Bonsly for a few seconds and told it to get ready as he threw the ball at Bonsly, who managed to catch it, using its head branches as a baseball glove, making the crowd go absolutely apeshit insane, cheering, as Bonsly smiles in happiness, pleased that it did well. Even Ash, Max, and Yuma were impressed by Brock's efforts. Just then, Brock claimed that he wasn't done yet, though, and threw 5 more baseballs into the air, leading Bonsly to catch all of them and juggle all of them, using its head branches, making the audience go even more apeshit, clapping, and Brock almost couldn't believe how well received his first performance was. And neither could May, as Bonsly continued to juggle, now using Flail to juggle at a more rapid pace. May eventually realized that Brock may actually be a tough opponent for her after all. She kind of thought she had this in the bag because she was actually experienced, while Brock wasn't, but she knew now that Brock could have a chance of winning. Meanwhile, outside the contest hall, Team Rocket had put Jesse's latest money-making scheme into action, with all of Team Rocket, including Lobafett and Mime Jr., dressed in hippie-style clothing, and they were selling various ribbons and other contest-related merchandise, such as images of Jessie in her Jezebel costume, images of Drew, and images of other random ass coordinators, including Kent. The money-making scheme was very successful, with a lot of people buying some souvenirs and fake ribbons and shit, so Jessie got determined, looking back towards the contest hall, mentioning to herself that it should be her inside the contest hall, competing towards her goal of being a top coordinator. She was sure bitchy she wasn't there right now, but this just got her more determined to get there eventually, once she sold enough shit. Anyways, back inside the contest hall, since Brock had went and had finished, the appeals rounds had now ended, so Lillian was announcing the coordinators that would go through to the next round, and told everyone who was in the audience, as well as all the coordinators who were now in the waiting room, to direct their attention to the screen where it was shown the top 8 coordinators advancing to the next round, the contest battles. May, Brock, and Molly all made it. Next, the screen revealed that Brock was going to be going up against Molly and her Eradicate, or whatever Pokemon she would choose to use now, while May would be going up against Kent. Kent was back, I guess. May remembered that she had beat Kent before, and also remembered how this contest was Molly's first contest, so she was confident that Brock would win and advance to the semifinals, along with herself. So, May simply told Brock that he better win the semifinals too, because she would absolutely love to battle Brock in the finals. So, Brock nodded, and May and Brock wished each other luck and thanked each other for the support, hoping that they would face each other in the finals. Just then, Ash, Max, and Yuma came into the room, and Ash commented on how excited both Brock and May looked for their upcoming battles. May and Brock were shocked to see Ash, Max, and Yuma, although Brock was delighted to see Yuma and tried desperately to flirt with her, but Yuma just laughed off Brock's advances as best she could, pushing away his hands as she tried to change the subject to May and her Squirtle, complimenting how awesome they were during their appeal round. Brock butts into the conversation, talking to May, admitting that he was nervous at first, but when the crowd was cheering, he gained a lot of confidence, enough to make it to the second round. And he thanked Yuma for all the advice to become a coordinator, at least for a little bit, and clarified that he would try his best to win the finals in her honor. Brock was blushing so hard, and he only blushed even more when Yuma asked Brock if he wanted to be her next student that she would teach her ways, which shocked everyone, especially May. However, before Brock could give a solid answer, he was called out, along with Molly, by Vivian, as the contest battles were finally beginning, and Brock versus Molly was up first. So, Brock and Molly both went up on stage, and Brock sent out his Marshtomp as his battle round Pokemon, while Molly sent out Absol. Absol was the first one to attack, attempting to use a Razor Wind, but Marshtomp was able to dodge. So, Absol tried a Quick Attack instead, heading straight towards where Marshtomp had jumped to safety when it dodged the previous attack. But before the Quick Attack could make contact with Marshtomp, Brock had Marshtomp use a Mud Shot on the ground beneath Absol, which made the ground slippery, so Absol started to slip. Ash talked to Yuma while this battle was going on, assuming that Yuma wouldn't want Brock to study with her if he lost, since she might have only accepted decently good people who she thought she at least had a chance to improve. But Yuma clarified that it didn't matter if Brock won or lost, as she wanted Brock for a selfish reason, actually. Not just so that she could benefit Brock by teaching him some shit about contests, but so that Brock could benefit her by teaching her some shit about breeding. Because even though she was great at breeding, she could always learn more. While this chatter was going on, Brock saw that Absol had slipped and fallen to the ground, so he saw a chance to order a final attack, telling Marshtomp to use Water Gun on Absol, and this sent Absol flying back and knocked out, leading Molly to be declared the loser, and Absol to be declared unable to battle, with Brock being announced the winner, along with his Marshtomp officially allowed to advance to the semifinals. The audience cheered for Brock, and the judges congratulated him, along with Lillian, but Molly was sad as fuck that she lost. We then don't get to see any more of the contest battles. We just know that May had beat Kent and advanced to the semifinals, and Brock and May both won their semifinal matches, so that meant the finalists of the Gardenia contest were Brock and May, and they both came out on the stage glaring at each other. Max was worried about who would win, for two reasons. One, he was worried that the person that would win would always rub it in the face of the other person, and the argument would essentially never end between the two, and two, he was worried because he didn't know who the fuck to root for. But Ash simply told Max to root for both May and Brock. May then sent out her Eevee, and Brock sent out his Marshtomp, as Lillian officially declared that it was time for the battle to begin, and got the audience extremely excited. May then started the battle by telling Eevee to use a Shadow Ball, although Brock relaxed, as he told Marshtomp to simply block the Shadow Ball with Protect, which it did. Marshtomp then followed up by using a Mud Shot, catching May off guard, because she was still shocked from before that Marshtomp knew Protect, because she didn't even know that it knew Protect, but this allowed the Mud Shot to get closer to Eevee, with May not doing anything, although May quickly recovered from her shock, and told Eevee to use a dig to dig down and avoid the Mud Shot. However, Lillian was impressed, since Brock refused to back down, telling Marshtomp to lower itself to the ground and use its fins to try and sense where Eevee was underground. The three judges were extremely impressed by this strategy, which led each of them to say their own comment about how awesome the strategy was. May then told Eevee to come out from underground now, but Marshtomp had been able to sense it, and used a water gun directly at it the second it came out of the ground, sending Eevee flying back and knocking it down. May called out to Eevee and begged it to get up from the ground, but it was too tired and pretty injured. Yuma remarked that Eevee could no longer use Dig to hide underground, as long as Marshtomp was able to sense it like that, and Ash was a bit frustrated watching his friends go head-to-head, now realizing that Max's problem of not knowing who to root for was pretty legit, because he wanted to be happy for Brock, but he was sad for May too. Ash's thoughts were interrupted, as Brock ordered Marshtomp to use a Mud Shot on Eevee, but May called out to Eevee again, desperately begging it to dodge, and this time, Eevee managed to jump out of the way just in time. Well, for the most part, but a bit of the mud actually stuck onto Eevee's leg, which caused it to slip and fall down, giving Marshtomp the opportunity to use a tackle on Eevee, sending Eevee flying back, but Eevee landed on its feet and was able to use a Shadow Ball, although Marshtomp used a Water Gun, which destroyed the Shadow Ball before it hit, causing smoke to emerge, which Marshtomp runs through, and then it tackles Eevee once more, sending Eevee flying back once again, forcing May to tell Eevee to use Dig to go underground to try and escape the onslaught. Although, as soon as Eevee went underground, Marshtomp simply sensed where Eevee would come out again, and immediately tackled it as soon as it appeared, even throwing in the headbutt as well. Eevee then digs again, and Marshtomp got a bit impatient, just wanting to tackle Eevee immediately, but it got its chance, tackling Eevee, sending it flying back once more. Although May got the idea to have Eevee keep digging 4 times in immediate succession. Even though Marshtomp quickly dodged all the attacks, not getting hit by Eevee at all, Marshtomp was getting a bit disoriented by all of the constant places that Eevee was popping out of. Brock then comes up with the idea to stop Eevee from going underground by using a Mud Shot, which plugs all the dug holes and also covers the rest of the field, which did make it impossible for Eevee to even use Dig. So Eevee resulted for using a tackle instead. But Marshtomp forces Eevee off course, basically forcing it to quit the tackle attack as a result when it fires off a water gun. This wasn't the only unfortunate thing for Eevee though, because when Eevee moved out of the way, it ended up falling into the mud on the field and slipped on it, getting covered in mud. Lillian was very impressed by the battle going on, while Brock had Marshtomp use one more water gun to stop Eevee from getting up out of the mud, taking away a lot of May's points. Frustrating May, as she wondered how she could possibly win, assuming that her points were down way more than Brock's, but when she looked at the scoreboard on the screen, she actually saw that it was a close round, despite Marshtomp not actually getting hit. The judges must have really fucking liked Eevee or some shit. Anyways, May also saw that there was only 1 minute remaining on the battle clock, and she quickly ordered Eevee to jump on top of a rock on the field to get out of the mud, which finally gave her a chance at winning, because Eevee wouldn't slip anymore. While Eevee was on the rock though, Brock had Marshtomp use another water gun, but just as the attack was about to hit, Eevee actually jumped on top of the water gun and ran down it towards Marshtomp, as it was still being fired out of its mouth. Eevee then reaches the end of the water gun and tackles straight into Marshtomp, sending it flying back into the own mud that it created, severely lowering Brock's points. Brock then orders Marshtomp to use water gun again, but each water gun blast, because Marshtomp did many in succession, was avoided by Eevee, who jumped between various rocks on the field. May then told Eevee to use a Shadow Ball on Marshtomp, which hit Marshtomp hard, causing Brock to lose a lot of his points as a result. May then tells Eevee to use a tackle on Marshtomp, as Brock told Marshtomp to use a Mud Shot, while Ash, Max, and Yuma watched intently. Evie was able to easily dodge this mud shot by jumping from rock to rock again, and eventually it landed the tackle on Marshtomp and followed up with a Shadow Ball again, but Marshtomp used a water gun to destroy the Shadow Ball before it could do anything. But at the same time, Marshtomp's water gun was also destroyed by the Shadow Ball, and also at this time, the clock on the screen reached 0, and May had more points at the end of this, so this meant that as opposed to Brock, May was declared the winner. And the screen shows this as the crowd cheers immensely. Brock then pets his Marshtomp, praising it on the great job it did, even though it didn't win, while Ash, Yuma, Max, and Pikachu all cheer for both Brock and May. All the coordinators that participated in the contest then come down to congratulate May as the crowd continues to cheer when Mr. Contesta comes down and awards May with her 4th Kanto ribbon, the Gardenia ribbon, for winning the contest, making May extremely happy as she only had one more ribbon to go before she was allowed to participate in the Kanto Grand Festival. And May was so happy that she did her victory pose with Eevee and the ribbon. We then cut outside the contest hall where we see Ash and Gang, Yuma, and Molly. And Yuma explained to Brock that Molly was actually her sister this whole time. Although she quickly clarifies that she was just fucking joking, and actually she reveals that she actually was taking Molly on as her student as opposed to Brock, since, according to Yuma, she saw that Brock was a fine coordinator despite him just starting out, and Molly had a lot more to learn, so Molly was officially taken on as Yuma's new student, making Brock extremely sad. Both Yuma and Molly try to cheer Brock up, admitting that he was a wonderful coordinator, as they both walk off, never to be seen again, leaving Brock still sad as fuck. Ash tried to cheer Brock up, saying that he should just get some practice as a coordinator, and maybe once he actually became super good, then Yuma would be swooning over him. But Brock yelled that he needed romance immediately. He didn't want to put in a whole bunch of time, and eventually decided that he should just go after another girl. May, on the other hand, was barely even paying attention to any of this, just paying attention to the fact and celebrating the fact that she only had one ribbon left before she could enter the Kanto Grand Festival. The episode then ends later that night with one last scene from Team Rocket, crowded around themselves in a nearby forest, counting their money. It turned out that Team Rocket had actually sold a lot of shit and made a lot of money, making Jessie excited as she declared her plan to use all the money to become a top coordinator by getting all new costumes for herself, and went on and on and on and on about how she would become the top coordinator, to no end, annoying Meowth and James.